So another thing that's distinctive around here is this idea that, and some people even find it off-putting, is that we just don't stop asking you to plug in, right? And sometimes that means in our cell life, in our small groups, but sometimes it also means like in service. Not sometimes, it does mean in service. Find a place to connect through in relationship, but find a place to connect in service. And that's a big part of who we are. And so we're just gonna share some thoughts on that and move forward.
Okay. So that would be me.
Yeah, Rachel, go for it.
Soft love. So early. Oh, for me, thanks.
You didn't get the signal?
Social distancing pat on the back.
This one. So I shared earlier how I had this distrust of church. I mean, I had served in church my whole life. It was just this whole thing like you did. It was part of your identity. And I just grew really sour of that. So I tried not to share with this new body the things I could do because I was leery of identifying. I was leery of being a part of everything. So, and I got to thinking one day, God was so good to hit me between the eyes with it, that he had given me gifts and skills and experiences that I use in my day job. I teach second grade. And he's like, I've given you all of this and you're making money using what I have given you. And yet you won't use that same gifts and experience to feed my sheep. And for me personally, it was so convicting. For me personally, it became a sin issue where I had to obey him because he had given me and gifted me with something. And to withhold that from his bride was like something I was not willing to sleep at night with. And it was it's humbling to be like, all right, I can help. I can do things. I can be a vibrant part of this body. And I still kind of hold it open-handed, kind of like, yeah, I've got these things and God, am I using what you have given me to continue your story?
Yeah, and it's so interesting because, you try to lead by like, the Gospel of Luke says like, compel them to come into the kingdom. Like, and you try to lead by just like a compelling case. Mm-hmm. And sometimes folks take that case and sometimes they don't. I'm curious, like, you guys sort of, what do you think about this? What level of responsibility does the church have to like require people to engage? Like, how does the church even do that? What does that look like?
I'd say it's kind of implicit in like the idea of church. Like if you're coming together as a body, things need to happen, and so I feel like that there's pushy and then there's like being almost like drawing people in, right? And I feel like the church has a role of drawing people in, but then the response is really up to each person how they respond. That's how I feel about that one.
Yeah, I think I agree. And the fact that you've been given like these gifts, I think it's on us as a body to like make sure everybody knows that like there's the idea of folks that just kind of are passively involved in church in the body. It's kind of a contradiction in terms, if we talk about like what a body is and like every part has a role and every role is important. And so everybody and their gifts that they have are important. So I mean, there's an education to it. There's a modeling that needs to happen. At the end of the day, like the idea of requiring everybody to do it is probably a bit of a radical idea. But I think it's almost like making it obvious that if you're not engaged, if kind of just coming and hanging back and listening to the message and whatnot, then you're missing out. You're really missing out on what it means to be a part of a movement, of a body, and what it's what God's trying to do in his kingdom. So
I remember actually both when I came to Life Community initially back in 1990, whenever, 7, I guess, and then when we came back, I remember the sin in me being like, oh, I know what I have to offer, but I'm using it somewhere else. Like, I'm not gonna, like, there was a thing in me. What is a church's responsibility with someone who was like me? Like, what do you think? Like, how how does a church respond when somebody just sort of says like, nope, it's mine and I'm gonna tuck it away?
Well, I'll tell you what LCC did for me
Yeah.
personally, and again, this body is known by grace and lovingly, and they just said, okay, but I might ask you again. And they use like they're just so kind and so gracious, and knew that was, again, my journey and what I was working through. And they said, oh, okay, but we know God will continue to do a good work in you. And when that time is right, we'll celebrate it and be like, oh, good. And they may have been privately praying. They may have been pleading, oh, dear Lord, let her see. But, and I see that in other people. I get to know them. And I think part of it is the requirement is, I think we're required to get to know people so that we can proclaim who they are. It's kind of like in the Bible, it uses the example of like a physical body. I mean, if an ear goes like today, I just don't feel like hearing.
Sure.
I'm just not. And you want to go, you are designed to hear.
Yeah.
That's what you were made to do. And you have something to do. So to lovingly do that.
Yeah, I've wondered too sometimes. I think of a couple times in our history where we just were so short on people, especially like children's ministry early on. And there were weeks, so we just said, people would come and say, hey, I'll just go ahead and come in with the kids. And we finally said, no, like they can stay in the service. People won't know there's a need if, somebody always just steps in. And I remember being really vocal, can we just make parents come serve in children's ministry? Like this whole idea of I'm not gifted. I go, you're a parent. Okay, so you just signed up for discipleship when your child was born. So I was a little bit harsh on that. And, people lovingly said, let people come when they're ready. And you don't know their history. You don't know if they're coming from a time of brokenness or church wounding. Like, just be patient. And so there's a part of me that says, hey, maybe sometimes people don't serve because they're healing or they're waiting. And like you said, they ask again. But there's something that happened in kids' life like last year that also struck me. And it's so sweet. I asked the kids, what are you good at? And every child in that room was so quick to say, I'm really good at math, or I'm really good at sports, or I'm really good at art. And they knew exactly what they got excited about. And I remember thinking, if I asked every adult in this room, what are you good at? There would be probably a long pause or well, this is my job, or this is what I went to school for, or I don't know. And so I think God's really reminding me too, maybe sometimes people don't serve because they just don't know what their gift is. And I would hope that this is a place where we can help people figure that out and try some things. And it's okay if you don't know right away.
One of the things that I love about LCC is that we're notorious for being so decentralized. It's almost like we wear it as a badge of honor to say that we don't have all of the programs that a lot of churches have. And if somebody comes to the pastor and says, I think we need to do this, that the answer is, great, go do that. That we don't like have a top-down approach, but we say, we want the ministry happens by the people, within community, within our small groups and whatnot. So I think that's kind of the beauty of our setup is that it sort of forces the issue. If someone's passionate about something, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen because people who are equipped and passionate about doing things are doing it.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So, so there's sort of just to kind of wrap this up with this idea, like, the LCC is a place, and we want to be a church that require is the word we're using, but like maybe require is the best word. Maybe it's more like it's normative. Like it's normal that you're serving, and if we don't have a place to serve, like we want to help you find that place to serve, but at the same time, like this is normal, and so finding ways to express that and saying that clearly and keeping that out front is something that I think we've all experienced.
Can I interrupt you with a thought that came through? But I remember early on in my upbringing that when you invite someone to serve, it's almost like you're telling them you are accepted.
Mm-hmm.
You are included as one of us, and we see value and worth in you, and we want you to come alongside us. Yeah. It's not like, no, only these people serve. No, we all serve because you're part of us. You're our tribe. You're our family. Yeah. So just a thought I had as you
Oh, that's
trying to
awesome.
wrap us up, and then I
Yeah, no, that's good.
Good.
That's good.
Sorry.
Love it. And in so many ways, that's a piece of the community, right? When we say Life Community Church, that it's not just that we do this and get to know each other relationally, but we do this side by side and we work and we serve together and that's every bit as meaningful and matters to us.